All right, guys, welcome back. We are going live again for the first time in 2020, for the first time in about, I don't know, 4 months. So, going live for the first time in a while. So, we might have a little bit of difficulties here because, like I said, it's been about 4 months or so. A little bit, things have changed. But hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully this goes smoothly, and this will be a weekly thing, especially for full tournament field events. I typically like to go live on those. The thought process changes as the week goes on, and we can get a little bit more information out there for everyone. But in this video, as always, we'll go over the picks again, talk about the value plays, talk about the GPP plays that are standing out, talk about some projected high-owned players, and then we'll also talk about the FanDuel and Yahoo plays as well, as always, because there's typically some mispriced players when it comes to those DFS platforms as well. But let's start off here. I'll just touch on some of the people in the high tier. Obviously, I still really like Webb Simpson. I do think if you can pay up for Justin Thomas, you should do that. I do like Justin Thomas a little bit more in FanDuel as well. But Webb Simpson, I like him the most. I talked about that in the last video. I don't know if I have to touch on that as much in this video. The play I do want to touch on is going to be Matt Kuchar here. It's interesting play overall, just because he has good course history, fourth, a 13th, and a 13th finish here. I messed that graphic up there. I apologize. No, sorry. I was looking at Webb Simpson. I can't get him out of my brain. I'm just playing him too much. Matt Kuchar won here last year, and he had a 13th overall finish. That's why I was getting it confused. But his recent form is kind of weird. 14th overall finishes and one missed cut mixed in there. His events have been sort of weird though, because he's been having some blow up rounds. But we know if Matt Kuchar is going to be playing his game, he's going to go out and have a good week. And this course does really set up well for him. Obviously, he's the defending champ. He played last week, so that gives him a little bit of a bump as well. So Matt Kuchar is a play that I do like. Just more of a GPP play though. I'm not sure we can play him in cash. But yeah, let's move on to another play. This is a play that I don't want to play in cash either. It is going to be more of a, hey, thanks, Aaron, I appreciate it, man. That helps. Charles Howell is an interesting play. Good course history. Recent form's been spotty. He really let us down in the last full tournament field event of the fall when he missed that cut, but he still shot -2 that week, and still the finishes before that have been pretty solid. T20, T36, T8. If he had made that cut at the previous event, he would be a cash play. But, we don't really know that recent form. We don't know how players are going to react to a miscut like that. So Charles Howell at this price point is going to make for a great GPP play. Obviously, we know he's a good stat fit for this course. Strong total putter, strong ball striker, strong strokes gain total. He's an accurate player. We know who Charles Howell is as a player. Just more of a GPP play this week. Corey Connors is a very interesting one. I saw him getting talked up a ton, and I only saw Corey Connors as more of like a lineup filler. When you're going through your lineup, and this week you'll have a lot of salary left over probably. And I ended up on Corey Connors in a few of my builds where I'm like, oh, that's fine. You kind of shrug your shoulders and move on. He does have decent course history, a 3rd and a 39th finish. Obviously, his recent form is fantastic. I'm a little worried about him being too chalky, which in cash, it's fine if he misses the cut. And you have him in your cash building, it's like 50% owned, which he could be, because I've seen him talked up quite a bit. I don't know if he'll be that high owned, but the ownership does worry for me with Corey Connors here. But I don't mind the play. It's more of a GPP play. We know Corey Connors has had random miscuts here and there on events that he shouldn't, but I just don't mind that play. Moving on to Brian Stewart. So I already touched on this a little bit more. I just wanted to break it down a little bit more for you guys. This is going to be more of a GPP play for me. Obviously, the course history is great. The recent form's great. The stat fit is great. He is checking all the boxes, and he's priced at below 8K. I do really like that. Yeah, Connors or CH3. I agree with that right there. That's a good assessment, I would say, as well. It's just it'll depend on your I'm not going to break my back trying to get one of them into the build. It's just, that's going to be a price point that you end up on. It's fine. Same thing could be said for someone like if you end up on Kevin Gisner, it's like, that's fine. I'd rather go up a little bit more, but if you end up on them, that's fine. Same thing with someone like Ches Reavie as well. That's just kind of my thought process especially with GPP builds this week. Just because there's so much value left over, you're gonna have some salary left over on the top end where you're just forced to pay up for someone But you can play a lineup with $500 left over. That's fine as well. But getting back into Stewart here, he is checking all the boxes. Course history, recent form, and stat fit. And what I like the most is that they're all ascending too. You know, the recent form is getting better as the year has gone on. That's something that we like to see. So I do think he'll be a good play this week. Other players around his price range, I already mentioned Andrew Putnam in the last video. Carlos Ortiz is an interesting play. You know, he was really catching my eye. There's a lot of better players and better options around his salary range that I didn't play him on DraftKings. Now, there's another, it's either FanDuel or Yahoo where I really like him. I think it's on Yahoo where he's min price, and I'll touch on that later on. Going lower, we're going to talk about a few value plays here that are really kind of catching my eye, and it surprised me. There's a ton of value plays on the slate. Right, I don't know how to say his name, Matthew Naismith or Neesmith. I don't know if it's correct or not. But you look at him, he's a really strong stat fit in this field. His recent form is good. He's had 2 top 20 finishes in his last 4 starts. I mean, this isn't a lock and load play by any means at all, but this is kind of just explaining the thought process. 53rd in total driving, 21st in ball striking, 80th in strokes gained total. He's 114th in putting, which isn't good. His greens and regulation, strong, top 20 in that. And then also, you know, birdie or better is fine. Driving accuracy is 15th, though. So if you're looking at those core 3 stats that we're looking at this week, which is ball striking, greens and regulation, driving accuracy, he excels in those 3. So it really wouldn't surprise me if he has a good week and goes out and gets a top 20. It's kind of like a Tyler Duncan play that we talked about when he won, like a month ago. But there's a ton of great value plays in this range, which makes it tough. Like normally, I'd be playing a lot of Naismith, but you got someone like Brandon Steele there, who this is a perfect course for Steele. He should do well. You got another player, Cameron Piercy, who's a great stat fit, and he's been pretty solid the whole fall swing. I don't mind that as a play. There's a couple more value plays that I like as well. Let's talk about it. Doc Redman I like as well. We've got another question coming in. Let's see it. Let me pull it up. Ton of value plays. That's why we pay up for JT in cash. I do like that strategy. In cash you can do that easily. You could do that as well in GPPs. You should be paying up for Justin Thomas enough, and if you're not paying up for him, you got to go with Webb Simpson this week. I do agree with that right there. In cash, the problem this week in cash is that the 8K range sucks. The 9K, right around 9K range is horrible, and the top end's loaded. So you could do that route if you wanted to. The 6K range is about what 7K range should be normally, and the 7K range is what the 8K range normally would be. So it is an interesting week. Doc Redman, great stat fit, great. I don't want to say great, but really strong recent form. We know he has that top 25 upside, and he's one of the younger guns that can go out and play well. Doc Redman at this price point is definitely intriguing. Not sure I can play Doc Redman in cash, but in GPPs I do like that as a play. If you guys have any other questions too, feel free to ask them. I'll try to take them at the end of each player point that I'm trying to make. Let me find the next value play that we're moving on to. Oh yeah, we're going to move on to FanDuel plays now. So the value in the FanDuel is kind of the same to DraftKings. FanDuel did a really good job with their pricing, but we got someone like Ryan Armour who did stick out. He stuck out on Yahoo and DraftKings as well. I just think he's priced pretty cheap this week. Alanto Griffin on FanDuel, I like him even more. Same thing with Russell Knox and Emiliano Grillo. And I think a stud that was pretty cheap on FanDuel is actually Sanjay M. So don't mind those value plays for FanDuel. And then we'll touch on Yahoo here as well. Yahoo, it's Alexander Noren. Alex Noren, real cheap, $24, which is almost minimum price on Yahoo. So if you're trying to get him into your builds or into your player pool, Yahoo's the way to do it. And that's why I like to, kind of break it down into these 3 different tiers for you guys, because sometimes, you want to play a player, but there's other players that are stronger in that price range for maybe DraftKings this week, which is the example I'm using. But Noren on Yahoo, that's a play you can go out of your way to make. Hey, Aaron, thanks, man. Yeah, if you guys can give me a like, I do appreciate that. Ryan Armour, $22, pretty cheap right there. Stewart, pretty cheap on there as well. But Carlos Ortiz, $20 on Yahoo. I mean, that is crazy. He is a pretty strong staff at this week. Top 25 in the field. I mean, this course does fit his game. His game has been ascending as well. So where his game just keeps getting better, it seems like. That's going to be tough to avoid him for $20 on Yahoo at that price point. All right, guys, I'll be signing off here soon, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to keep them coming. Just want to touch on the membership page. We'll be trying to post on this a little bit more. Post the article on it around 2 p.m. Central each week. On Thursday, it'll be the sample build that I'm thinking, and that'll just be kind of a breakdown of my overall thought process for that week. It won't be a specific cash or GPP build. It'll just be a concentrated thought of my thought process for that week with the player pool. So Morikawa, it does seem that way, but I don't get how my general rule of thumb is to always try to get course history, players who have good course history into my cash builds, and Morikawa isn't that this week. Obviously, he doesn't have any. I know he's made 15 straight cuts, and he should, obviously do well. I would rather pay down like almost, was it $700 cheaper for Sanjay M, who's pretty much the exact same player, and had a 16th overall finish here last year. That's just kind of my thought process there. And, I like Colin Morikawa as a play. I'd just rather get my ownership towards him on Yahoo. That's my thought there. It sucks because he's one of my favorite players, especially dating back to last year. I remember watching him live at, the 3M Classic or whatever they're calling it. That was a pretty fun one. So, if it's going to be that windy, Scott, I would imagine that they would suspend play if it's going to be, upwards to 40 miles per hour wind. It's really, you can't really play in that. So it's tough to gauge what we should do for the first 2 days with the wind. So, I mean, if it's going to be 15 to 20, yeah, you can factor that in a little bit. I'll touch on some players that, have good wind or a little bit better, get elevated. If it's windy, that'd be someone like Mark Leishman, typically plays better in the wind. Let me see here. Russell Knox is a little bit better in the wind typically. There's not that many not elite, but players that typically perform better than the rest of the field in windy conditions. Those would be the two that I would elevate a little bit. Other than that, it's going to be kind of the same. I would have to go back and look at players that actually do perform worse in the wind. But like I said, if it's going to be that high of wind, it's tough to imagine them not suspending play just because of the high winds. Yeah, about Colin Morikawa, I know, around the course and everything like that, it's tough to, have that narrative if he's going to play better or worse. Sometimes I'll add a little bit more pressure onto a player and they do poorly. Who was it? Tommy Fleetwood, like 2 or 3 years ago at the Open Championship. It was his home course or something like that, and he had been trending upwards. Great recent form, great stat fit, and he just choked. So I guess that'd be the example of it going the other way. I do expect Morikawa to make the cut, but yeah, I get the narrative there. Going back to the membership page though, each week I'll have a free write-up. That'll just be a breakdown of kind of the favorite plays at each tier: the high tier, the mid tier, the low tier, and the value tier. I think you guys already know what the tiers are for that. Be a breakdown of the player pool and kind of the ownerships for them. I'll give you guys specific cash and GPP plays, and that'll be kind of the stat model of what I'm looking at that week. All right, guys, that's all I have for you guys for this video. Thanks for the questions and comments. Thanks for viewing in. Like I said, I'll try to do this weekly at around 1 p.m. Central. And then the write-up for the members will be posted on every Tuesday at around 2 p.m. Central. But that's all I have for you guys this week. Let's have a good week this week, and let's start the week off cashing the full tournament field event season out.